Your words are not just sounds you make with your mouth. They are instructions you give to your mind. Every thought you repeat becomes a command that shapes how you see yourself and the world around you. When you constantly speak doubt, fear, or limitation, your mind accepts those instructions as truth and begins to operate within those boundaries. But when your words are intentional, empowering, and aligned with growth, your mind starts looking for evidence to support them. This is why awareness of self-talk is critical, because your internal dialogue quietly becomes the blueprint for your external reality. Most people underestimate how often they speak negatively to themselves throughout the day. These statements may sound harmless, but repetition gives them power. When you repeatedly tell yourself you are not ready, not good enough, or not capable, you reinforce hesitation and delay. Over time, these words harden into beliefs, and beliefs drive behavior. Your actions then begin to confirm what you've been saying all along, creating a cycle that feels like reality, but is actually self-programming. Changing results requires changing the language that fuels your thinking and directs your daily decisions. Words act like seeds planted in the subconscious mind. Whatever you plant consistently will grow, whether it is productive or destructive. Positive words are not wishful thinking, they are strategic alignment tools. When you speak clarity, confidence, and possibility, you give your mind permission to search for solutions instead of excuses. Your focus shifts from what is missing to what is possible. This shift alone can dramatically change how you show up in conversations, opportunities, and challenges. The future you experience is often the echo of the words you repeatedly spoke in private. Your mind does not argue with repeated statements, it accepts them as facts. This is why intentional self-talk is not about emotion, but about direction. Even when circumstances contradict what you say, consistent language trains your mind to move toward growth rather than retreat. Over time, your internal dialogue becomes your dominant narrative, and that narrative shapes your expectations. Expectations influence confidence. Confidence influences action, and action produces results. The process is subtle, but it is always working, whether you are aware of it or not. The way you talk to yourself during difficulty matters more than how you speak when things are going well. In moments of pressure, uncertainty, or delay, your words determine whether you rise or retreat. If your language is filled with defeat, your energy collapses. If your language reinforces purpose and learning, resilience increases. This is not denial of reality, it is mastery over response. You may not control what happens, but you control what you tell yourself about what happens. And that interpretation determines your next move. Your words also influence how others perceive and respond to you. Internal dialogue eventually becomes external expression, affecting tone, posture, and presence. When you speak from a place of certainty internally, it naturally shows in how you communicate publicly. People respond to confidence that is rooted in belief, not performance. This is why leaders, high performers, and problem solvers are intentional about language. They understand that clarity of speech produces clarity of thought, and clarity of thought leads to decisive action that others trust. Self-talk shapes identity over time. You become the person you describe yourself to be, not in one moment, but through daily reinforcement. When your words align with growth, responsibility, and value, your identity expands. You begin to see yourself as capable of learning, adapting, and producing results. This identity then governs what opportunities you pursue and which ones you ignore. Language is the bridge between who you are now and who you are becoming, and crossing that bridge starts with consistent verbal alignment. Many people try to change habits without changing language, which leads to frustration. Habits follow identity, and identity follows belief, and belief is built through repetition of words. When your language changes, your standards begin to rise naturally. You tolerate less distraction, less fear, and less self-sabotage. You begin to operate with intention instead of reaction. This is not about pretending to be someone else. It is about speaking into alignment with the version of yourself you are building intentionally. Your words also determine the emotional state you operate from most often. Language can create urgency, peace, confidence, or anxiety depending on how it is used. When you consistently speak words of possibility, responsibility, and progress, your emotional baseline stabilizes. This stability improves focus and decision making. Instead of being controlled by mood or circumstance, you begin to operate from conviction. That conviction fuels consistency, and consistency is what separates temporary motivation from lasting transformation. The most powerful conversations you will ever have are the ones no one else hears. These private dialogues shape your courage, your persistence, and your willingness to act. When your words are aligned with growth, they quietly remove internal resistance. You stop negotiating with fear and start moving with purpose. Over time, your reality begins to mirror your internal language, not because of magic, but because your words trained your mind to act in alignment with opportunity, responsibility, and expansion. Self-worth is not something you earn after achievement. It is something you must decide before achievement appears. When people tie their worth to results, titles, or income, they give external circumstances control over their confidence. This creates instability because results fluctuate. When worth comes first, actions become bolder and decisions become cleaner. You stop seeking permission to move forward and stop shrinking to fit expectations. Internal value becomes the anchor that keeps you steady during uncertainty. From that place, effort feels purposeful rather than desperate, and progress becomes a natural extension of self-belief. Many people unknowingly negotiate against themselves because they question their own value. They underprice, overexplain, overwork, and tolerate less than they deserve. This behavior does not come from lack of skill, but from lack of self-recognition. When you believe your worth is conditional, you try to earn validation through performance. This leads to burnout and resentment. When you believe your worth is inherent, you operate with boundaries and confidence. You no longer chase approval, you allow alignment. That shift alone changes how you show up, what you accept, and how others respond. Self-worth determines the standards you set and enforce. Low self-worth allows chaos, distraction, and disrespect to enter your life unchecked. High self-worth demands structure, focus, and intentionality. You begin to protect your time, your energy, and your attention because you recognize their value. This recognition shapes daily habits and long-term choices. Success does not elevate worth, worth elevates behavior. When standards rise internally, external outcomes eventually follow. The world often mirrors how you treat yourself, and treatment is guided by what you believe you deserve at the deepest level. Confidence rooted in self-worth is different from confidence based on outcomes. Outcome-based confidence disappears when results slow down. Worth-based confidence remains steady regardless of circumstance. This steadiness allows you to take risks without fear of identity loss. Failure becomes feedback rather than a personal verdict. You can learn, adapt, and move forward without internal collapse. This emotional resilience is essential for long-term success. Without it, every challenge feels personal. With it, challenges feel instructional. Growth requires the ability to remain grounded while stretching beyond comfort, and that grounding comes from self-worth. When self-worth is established internally, comparison loses its power. You stop measuring your progress against someone else's timeline. You understand that different paths require different paces. This clarity reduces anxiety and increases focus. Instead of copying others, you build in alignment with your strengths and values. Comparison drains creative energy while self-worth concentrates it. The more secure you are internally, the more original your actions become. Authenticity thrives where worth is settled. Success built from imitation is fragile, but success built from identity has depth and longevity. Many people believe discipline creates self-worth, but the opposite is true. Self-worth creates discipline. When you value yourself, you naturally keep commitments, maintain routines, and follow through. You no longer rely on motivation because respect fuels consistency. You show up not to prove something, but to honor something. This internal respect removes the constant battle with procrastination and self-sabotage. Discipline stops feeling like punishment and starts feeling like alignment. You do what needs to be done because your actions match how you see yourself internally. Self-worth also affects how you receive opportunities. People who doubt their value often hesitate when opportunity appears. They question whether they are ready or deserving. People who know their worth step forward with responsibility. They understand that growth happens through engagement, not perfection. Opportunity responds to readiness of mindset more than readiness of skill. Skills can be learned, but worth must be claimed. When you operate from self-worth, you trust your ability to grow into challenges rather than waiting to feel fully prepared. Relationships are also shaped by self-worth. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. When worth is low, boundaries blur and expectations weaken. When worth is clear, communication becomes direct and respectful. You stop overextending to maintain acceptance. This clarity strengthens both personal and professional relationships. Mutual respect becomes the standard rather than negotiation. Success rarely happens in isolation, and the quality of collaboration you experience is deeply connected to how you value yourself internally. Self-worth influences vision. People with low self-worth dream small to avoid disappointment. People with solid self-worth allow themselves to envision bigger outcomes. They believe they are capable of growth, learning, and expansion. Vision requires permission, and self-worth grants it. When you believe you matter, your goals reflect that belief. You stop limiting the future to match past experiences. Vision becomes expansive instead of cautious. This expanded thinking opens pathways that were previously invisible due to internal limitation. When self-worth is settled, patience increases. You no longer rush progress to validate yourself. You understand that meaningful growth takes time and consistency. This patience prevents impulsive decisions driven by insecurity. You can delay gratification without feeling diminished. Progress becomes strategic rather than reactive. You stay committed even when results are slow because your identity is not dependent on immediate outcomes. This long-term perspective is essential for building something sustainable, meaningful, and aligned with who you are becoming. Value creation begins with understanding that income is not a reward for effort, but a response to usefulness. The marketplace does not compensate people based on how hard they work, how long they work, or how sincere their intentions are. It compensates based on how effectively problems are solved. When you shift your focus from personal gain to meaningful contribution, your thinking expands. You begin asking better questions about impact, outcomes, and relevance. This shift changes how you approach learning, service, and execution. Value is created when your skills intersect with real needs and produce measurable improvement for others. Many people stay financially stuck because they focus on consuming value instead of producing it. Consumption feels productive, but production is what creates leverage. When you invest time in developing skills that solve specific problems, you position yourself differently in any environment. Value creation requires intentional learning, application, and refinement. It is not accidental. The more precisely you understand a problem, the more valuable your solution becomes. Precision increases demand, and demand increases compensation. This is why specialists are often rewarded more than generalists. They create clarity where confusion exists and relief where frustration has been tolerated. Value is amplified when it is scalable. Solving one problem once helps one person, but creating a solution that can help many multiplies impact. Scalability does not always require technology, but it requires systems, structure, and clarity. When your value can be delivered repeatedly without equal increases in effort, abundance becomes more predictable. This is where leverage enters the equation. Leverage allows the same skill or insight to produce greater results over time. Understanding leverage shifts your focus from tasks to outcomes and from activity to effectiveness. The perception of value is just as important as the creation of value. If people do not understand the benefit of what you offer, they will undervalue it. Communication becomes a critical skill in the value equation. Clear articulation of results, transformation, and outcomes increases perceived value. This is not manipulation, it is translation. You are helping others see how your solution fits their needs. When value is clearly communicated, price resistance decreases. People do not mind paying when they understand what they are receiving and why it matters. Value creation requires responsibility. When you take responsibility for solving problems instead of blaming circumstances, your capacity expands. Responsibility pushes you to improve skill, thinking, and execution. It moves you out of victimhood and into leadership. Leaders are valuable because they carry solutions, not excuses. The more responsibility you are willing to carry, the more valuable you become. This is why higher levels of income often come with higher levels of responsibility. The ability to hold pressure and still produce results is a rare and rewarded trait. Abundance flows toward those who continually improve their value. Static value leads to stagnant results. The world changes, problems evolve, and solutions must adapt. Continuous learning is not optional for long-term relevance. When you commit to growth, you future-proof your value. Learning expands perspective. An expanded perspective leads to innovation. Innovation increases usefulness. This cycle creates momentum that compounds over time. The person who improves consistently becomes increasingly difficult to replace. Replacement risk decreases as value depth increases. Value is not limited to technical skill. It also includes reliability, integrity, and emotional intelligence. People value those they can trust, depend on, and communicate with effectively. Showing up consistently and delivering on promises increases perceived and actual value. Trust reduces friction in relationships and transactions. When friction decreases, opportunity increases. Many people overlook these intangible elements, yet they often determine who is chosen, promoted, or recommended. Value is holistic, combining competence with character and consistency. Creating value often requires seeing what others overlook. Opportunity exists where problems are normalized or ignored. When you develop the habit of observing inefficiencies, frustrations, and unmet needs, you position yourself as a solution provider. Curiosity becomes a value-building tool. Asking why something works the way it does often reveals improvement opportunities. Those who solve visible problems help. Those who solve invisible problems lead. Leadership is rewarded because it brings clarity and direction where uncertainty previously existed. The connection between value and income is not immediate, but it is consistent. Value compounds over time when applied strategically. Short-term thinking focuses on quick rewards, while long-term thinking focuses on sustainable contribution. When you prioritize value creation, income becomes a byproduct rather than a pursuit. This reduces desperation and increases patience. Patience allows better decisions. Better decisions lead to better positioning. Over time, the marketplace responds to those who consistently show up with solutions and results. Abundance is not about accumulation, it is about circulation. The more value you put into the world, the more value flows back to you in different forms. This flow is governed by trust, usefulness, and relevance. When you focus on how many people you can help and how well you can help them, your capacity expands. Expansion creates options, and options create freedom. Freedom is often mistaken for wealth, but it is actually the result of sustained value creation aligned with real human needs. Action is the birthplace of confidence, not the result of it. Many people believe they must feel prepared before they move, but readiness is often an illusion created by fear. Waiting delays growth and reinforces doubt. When you act despite uncertainty, you send a signal to your mind that progress matters more than comfort. This signal builds internal strength. Each small step taken without complete clarity creates evidence of capability. Over time, that evidence replaces hesitation with trust in your ability to adapt. Action teaches faster than thinking because movement exposes you to real feedback instead of imagined outcomes. Clarity rarely appears in stillness, it emerges through motion. When you take action, you gather information that cannot be accessed through planning alone. Mistakes, adjustments, and insights only surface once you engage with reality. This process refines direction. Those who wait for perfect understanding remain stuck in analysis, while those who move learn by doing. Learning through action accelerates growth because it transforms uncertainty into experience. Experience builds competence, and competence builds confidence. Momentum is created when action becomes habitual rather than conditional, allowing progress to continue even when emotions fluctuate. Fear often disguises itself as preparation. You convince yourself that you need more NOL, DGE, more resources, or more time, when what you actually need is movement. Fear loses power when challenged by action. Each step taken weakens its influence. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move anyway. The mind follows behavior, not the other way around. When you act, your thoughts begin to align with your behavior. This alignment reduces internal conflict and increases decisiveness. Over time, action becomes your default response instead of hesitation. Waiting for confidence places control outside yourself. Acting places control back in your hands. Confidence that depends on feeling ready is unstable because feelings change daily. Confidence built through action is resilient because it is rooted in evidence. You begin to trust your ability to figure things out as you go. This trust is more powerful than certainty. Certainty limits growth to known outcomes, while trust allows expansion into the unknown. Growth requires stepping into unfamiliar territory, and action is the vehicle that carries you there. Progress favors those who start before they feel ready. Starting creates urgency, and urgency sharpens focus. When you commit through action, distractions lose appeal. You become invested in outcomes because effort has already been applied. This investment increases follow-through. Momentum builds when action creates emotional buy-in. The more you move, the more engaged you become. Engagement fuels persistence. Persistence produces results. Results reinforce belief. This cycle begins with movement, not motivation. Motivation is often a byproduct of progress, not its cause. Perfectionism is another form of delay. It convinces you that flaws disqualify you from beginning. Action exposes imperfection, but it also refines it. Improvement only happens through repetition and feedback. Those who wait to be perfect never gain the repetitions required for mastery. Mastery is built through imperfect action repeated consistently. Each attempt improves skill and sharpens judgment. The willingness to act while imperfect accelerates learning. Learning compounds when paired with consistency. Consistent action turns potential into performance. Decisive action builds self-respect. When you follow through on intentions, you reinforce trust in yourself. This self-trust strengthens identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who moves, not someone who delays. Identity shapes behavior. When action becomes part of who you believe you are, hesitation decreases naturally. You no longer debate every move you execute and adjust. Adjustment becomes normal rather than discouraging. This adaptability increases confidence because it proves you can handle change rather than avoid it. Opportunities respond to movement. Stillness rarely attracts momentum. When you take action, you become visible to possibility. Conversations change, options appear, and resources align once motion begins. Many opportunities are unlocked only after the first step is taken. Waiting keeps them hidden. Action signals readiness to engage, even if details are unclear. Engagement creates connection. Connection creates access. Access expands potential. This chain reaction begins with movement, not certainty. Action opens doors that planning alone cannot. Growth requires discomfort, and action introduces it intentionally. Discomfort is not a signal to stop. It is evidence of expansion. When you act through discomfort, you build tolerance for challenge. This tolerance increases capacity. Increased capacity allows greater responsibility. Greater responsibility leads to higher impact. Avoiding discomfort limits growth to familiar territory. Familiar territory offers safety, but little progress. Action pushes boundaries. Boundaries expand only when tested. Each time you move through discomfort, your range increases, making future challenges feel manageable. The habit of acting quickly builds momentum over time. Speed reduces overthinking and increases execution. Execution produces results faster than contemplation. Results provide data. Data improves decisions. Improved decisions enhance outcomes. This cycle thrives on action taken early and often. Waiting slows feedback and delays growth. Action accelerates learning. Learning strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels further action. This upward spiral begins the moment you choose movement over hesitation and commitment over comfort.